What's up, fellas? In the second video of the day, we're going to be talking about some teams in the NBA that might regret not having made a move at the deadline this season. A lot of teams made moves, and there are teams on this list that did make moves, but they could maybe regret either not making different ones or the ones that they made or not making additional moves. But really quickly before we get started, I want to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Manscaped. I told you guys about their products before and I've been using them for over a year now, and there's truly no better all-in-one men's grooming solution than the Lawnmower 3.0 from Manscaped. The Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer, part of the performance package from Manscaped, is a rechargeable, cordless, water-resistant trimmer that's truly a game changer for male hygiene, and it goes to a good cause as well, as every purchase at manscaped.com goes towards contributions to the Testicular Cancer Society. Together, TCS and Manscaped are committed to raising awareness for the most common form of cancer in men aged 15 to 35 and giving support for fighters, survivors, and families impacted by testicular cancer. So if you're looking for a men's grooming solution and you want to support a good cause, you can go to manscaped.com and type in my code SPORTING20 at checkout for 20% off, as well as free international shipping. Again, that's code SPORTING20 at manscaped.com. And thank you again to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. With those things said, let's go through the list. First up, and the team that is probably, in my opinion, the most interesting team in the Western Conference right now in terms of how good are they, is the Phoenix Suns. Maybe some people were expecting me to say the Utah Jazz. I think it's been established that the Jazz are worst case like a good team. They've been a good team for a couple of seasons. What their ceiling is, we don't really know. But I think there's a lot more uncertainty with this Suns team because we just don't have a history of this franchise doing a lot of positive things over the last 5 or 6 years. Now, it's different when Chris Paul is there. It's different when Devin Booker has good players around him. And they clearly tapped into something in the bubble last year that's translated to this year, and it's related to the Chris Paul transaction, right? However, I think that there is a scenario where we get to the second round of the postseason, right, and the Suns lose in 7 games. Or they get to the conference finals and we're more competitive than people thought that they would be because of just how the bracket broke and maybe the Lakers, have some injury issues, whatever. And we're thinking, man, they needed one more piece. They needed a backup plan, assuming Ayton can't figure it out defensively and they need someone else to go out there and guard at the 5. They needed just one more shooter, one more guy that could defend, one more guy that could create plays. I think that's a possibility. And if you're a Suns team and you're looking at this and you've got this year and next year with Chris Paul, and after that it's very up in the air, you could make the argument that their window to make a move was this deadline. And yes, they've already given up picks in the future to get Paul, and some of their assets are a little bit limited, but they've got some guys that can interest other teams. Maybe Jalen Smith would have been the move, and maybe you could make the argument that they screwed up that pick. Maybe that guy was the one that they were supposed to add. But I think you could make the argument that Phoenix missed out on an opportunity here to make a bigger move, and it could come back to haunt them. Next up, the Denver Nuggets, a team that made one of the more significant moves at the deadline. They brought in Aaron Gordon, but I talked about this in the Gordon trade video. I talked about this in the live stream at the time that it happened. What their plan is in the backcourt defensively concerns me. If their plan is for their closing and starting unit in the postseason to include Jamal Murray and Will Barton in the backcourt, that's a problem to me. I understand that Aaron Gordon can make a difference defensively and he can help you guard guys on the front court and on the wing, but you're telling me that like Will Barton is a guy that's supposed to be engaged and guard defensively in the postseason down the stretch against some of the better guards in the West, right? Because like Aaron Gordon can't guard everybody. Maybe you're going to throw MPJ out there and you're going to hope that's a guy that can step up defensively, but you can throw him in there too. Murray, Barton, MPJ. One of them, assuming that's your closing lineup, is going to have to guard somebody that's good. And before that wasn't that much of an issue because you had Gary Harris, but Harris being a part of the Gordon deal makes me nervous about their defensive ability in the postseason because offensively they've got it. They've got it figured out. Jokic is the front runner for the MVP right now, in my opinion, and Jamal Murray's been coming on lately as well. So the issue is going to be defensively, and I think they tried to, remedy that by bringing in Gordon to replace the Grant spot. The problem was they had to give up Gary Harris to be able to do that. Not that Harris has been fantastic, not that he has not been a liability at times offensively, but who are you relying on defensively in the backcourt just makes me nervous. And I would imagine there are Nuggets fans watching this video thinking, yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about that as well. We've had the Will Barton experience, and it's never been great defensively. That's all I'm saying. Next up, Boston. They got pretty good value, at the deadline when it comes to bringing in someone like Evan Fournier, who's exactly what they need. They needed another creator. They needed another guy that they could put out there and say, this guy's going to do stuff when he's on the court. He's not just going to be out there and play 25 minutes and not score and go 0 for 2 from the field. Like Fournier is going to be able to create some shots a little bit, make some shots off the ball. His debut was obviously not great, but I think it got good value for giving up, for this season at least, basically nothing, 2 second-round picks in the future. Giving up Tice and stuff like that, that had to do with money, and, things got a little bit weird with that, and I think they actively made their team worse by dumping Tice and getting back like Mo Wagner, but, they want to get on the luxury tax, whatever, that makes sense. However, What if we get to the postseason and like, you know what, we could have had a shot at Vucevic, we could have had a shot at Aaron Gordon, but we're going to end up, potentially losing in the first round or getting swept in the second round because we did not make a move. Now, maybe you could make the argument that, well, then if that was the case and they were ever that bad, then they never should have made a move in the first place and given up things in the future. I think that's possible, but there's still plenty of talent on this Boston roster. This is a team that has multiple guys that have been to multiple Eastern Conference finals. Like, they know what it takes to succeed in the postseason. And if you want to tell me that they make the conference finals, I won't be shocked. I won't be surprised at all if we see a Philly-Boston or a Boston-Brooklyn conference finals. They have that level of talent, and they could have even added to that at the trade deadline, which they obviously attempted to do, but maybe didn't go far enough. Another team that maybe could regret not making a move at the deadline. Next up, the Sixers and the Heat at the same time, both of them passing on Kyle Lowry, and by extension, the Raptors not trading Kyle Lowry. All three of those teams kind of go together here. Philly, by all accounts, was at least, intrigued by the idea of adding Kyle Lowry. Maybe the Raptors were asking for too much. Maybe they weren't all that interested. They didn't know if they were going to be able to re-sign him. Same thing with the Heat. Oladipo seemed like the backup plan to Lowry, and I'm assuming that it's because the price was too high. They wanted Hero. The Raptors wanted Hero, and they're okay, that's not going to happen, so we're just going to move on without him. And then the Raptors not getting any value out of him could potentially be a problem in the future as well. Ultimately, I'm not sure it's really going to matter. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Lowry returns or if they're not that worried about him leaving in free agency anyway. And the Heat and the Sixers are very good teams regardless. I think it definitely could have elevated a team like Philadelphia or a team like Miami. I don't know that it's going to be a huge, huge problem, but it certainly could be something you look back at and say, maybe they regret not making that move. Two more now. This is going to be kind of an out of nowhere one. The Detroit Pistons for hanging on to Jeremy Grant. There was a lot of interest reportedly in trading for Jeremy Grant. Boston was a team that was definitely kicking the tires on throwing multiple firsts at Detroit in order to get him. And I understand the argument for keeping him, right? Still relatively young, guy's borderline all-star, has been really, really good. Only in the first season of his contract, things like that. I get all that. But my thing would be, what guarantee do you have that the value that Jeremy Grant currently has is going to hold? We've never seen him play like this. Now, has he ever had an opportunity to? No. But we've never seen Jeremy Grant score on this level. We've never seen him be a borderline all-star caliber guy, and you could have capitalized on that value on a team that still needs to add assets. Just because you have Jeremy Grant, Saddiq Bey does not mean that you are bound for the finals in 2025. Like, that's not how it works. So you could make the argument that they should have capitalized on his value because it will never be higher than it is. Now, maybe he continues to grow and improve. Maybe he's a perfect piece alongside someone that you bring in later down the road. That's a fair argument. But a guy that after this season will have 2 years left on his contract might have been really, really good value in a trade at what could have been his peak, and they might have missed out on that. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm making the case that maybe it was. And last up now, the San Antonio Spurs. We didn't really have a ton of buzz about them leading up to the deadline. Nobody was really mentioning a lot of Spurs stuff. It was just Aldridge is going to be bought out, and the DeRozan rumors had kind of cooled off. But I find that odd, considering the situation that San Antonio's in. They're a good team, but, if you look at some of the advanced numbers in terms of scheduling, in terms of point differential, maybe the record is a little bit better than kind of indicates how good of a team they actually are. And you could also make the case that they've already got plenty of young guards that, like, losing DeRozan won't really be that big of a deal. They get some kind of value out of him, and you go from there. Now, the counter to that, and what probably ended up happening, is they weren't getting great, if any, offers in exchange for DeRozan. They're like, well, why don't we just make an attempt to re-sign him and keep him and see if either he has value to our team or on the trade market in the future? To me, it seems like, given the fact that they were willing to move on from Aldridge, if they'd gotten compelling offers for DeRozan, they would have, worst case, explored them, and then those things would have come out. We would have had reports. The fact that there were basically no reports, I know San Antonio can kind of be hush-hush about this kind of stuff, but the fact that there were basically no reports about DeRozan trades leading up to the deadline makes me think that San Antonio gave up on that idea based off of some of the conversations they had with other teams because of the limited assets they were willing to give up for DeRozan. But maybe they should have been more aggressive in shopping him. Maybe they should have just moved him regardless, because it's possible he is leaving in the offseason anyway. But DeRozan's kind of an odd and interesting player to figure out the value of, whether it be trade or free agency. So that's the list. Let me know down in the comment section below what other teams you think might have possibly messed up and regret not making a move at the deadline. We've got the Suns, Nuggets, Celtics, Sixers, Raptors, Pistons, and Spurs all on the list, which is odd because I think all but 4 teams in the entire league made a trade. It was like Memphis, LA, and a couple of other teams were the only teams that were not involved in a trade in some capacity, this season leading up to the deadline. So, there weren't a lot of teams to pick from in terms of teams that did absolutely nothing, but regrets either for things they did, things they didn't do, or things that kind of aren't at the forefront of people's minds that maybe could have been an option as well, like Detroit potentially trading Jeremy Grant. All those things come into play, and I hope you guys enjoyed me breaking them down in this video. But with those things said, hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for watching the videos. Check out more videos from me, the boxes on the screen. And yeah, thanks again, and I will see you all next time.